to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello, Be Awesome listeners. This is episode 26 of the Be Awesome podcast. I am on the 17th floor at the Hilton on the Main in Norfolk, Virginia, looking out onto the water with a phenomenal friend of mine, an awesome friend of 12 plus years that I had to have on here. And we're having it old school style, which is Martinis and Meatballs in the morning, which doesn't get any better, and we'll get into that story. But first, I'd like to welcome Jason Taylor to the podcast. T, welcome aboard.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on here. This is an awesome opportunity.
We're going to say awesome a couple times.
Absolutely, yeah. 2 times in this thing.
So
it's good to see you and good to be a part of this.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm the guy that leaves my phone on for the start of this thing. So let me shut the buzzer off real quick. But T's got a couple weeks ago, I FaceTimed T, and he had a T-shirt on, which is how he lives his life, which is the saying of embrace a suck. Lots of people say it, lots of people wear it, lots of people write it. Very few people do it, and T is one of those guys. So I'm going to get T to share a little bit of his life, and I think we're going to go with your background. You were a Marine for
22 years, little more than that. So spent 22 years in a few days in the Marine Corps. Joined in 1990 and retired in 2012.
So without me peeling off those pieces of your career, walk us through it.
Man, walk you through the whole 22 years.
Walk us through it. Give me some highlights. Give me the T highlight reel. All right.
So it all started obviously well before ever becoming a Marine. Just wanting to be a Marine. Grew up in Flint, Michigan. Was a city kid most of my life, but I did spend a lot of time outdoors. So I just had this feeling that I wanted to be in the military when I was young. So obviously making it through high school, and which was a feat in itself. I graduated high school and joined the Marine Corps, and that was in 1990. So I went to boot camp in San Diego. A lot of people say, well, coming from Michigan, shouldn't you have went to Parris Island? And you always got the big deal between Parris Island and us Hollywood Marines that went to San Diego. But Michigan's kind of divided in the recruiting way of the Marine Corps there. So anyone that goes to Detroit MEPS and processes through the city of Detroit and in and around Detroit ends up going to Parris Island. Everyone else from the rest of the state of Michigan processes through Lansing MEPS, and they go out to San Diego. It's the whole east-west of the Mississippi River line. Okay. So that's how I ended up going to San Diego for boot camp. Mm-hmm. But so I graduated the Marine Corps, graduated boot camp, went through Marine combat training, as all non-combat MOS guys do, and then I went to my first MOS school, which was actually administration. I was going to be an administrator. I was married right out of boot camp. Had a child that was born when I was in second phase of boot camp, so that was my going to be my line of work. Didn't actually work out that way. Got to my first duty station in North Carolina and ended up working more in operations than administration with the 2MEF, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force there at Camp Lejeune. Did that for about a year and a half and then went to the 24th MEU Command Element. And that's where I proceeded to do my deployments out of there on Navy ships. And 92 through 94, I did a total of 3 trips to Somalia during that time.
Where Black Hawk Down took place.
Yep, that actually happened in 94. That was toward in between my second and third tours there was when that actually happened. But Somalia was a very interesting place. I'm sure lots of your listeners have read and seen movies and read different stories, but a lot of the stuff that's out there is true. That was probably to this day the fighting that we saw in Somalia was probably some of the worst and most fierce fighting between individuals in the streets and things like that. But it was I learned a lot. Learned a lot in Somalia. And then after that, I came back from my third deployment, and I was 24 years old, and my welcome home was getting diagnosed with cancer, testicular cancer. So I can't remember how long I'd been back, maybe a couple weeks to a month or so. I don't remember. It's been so many years what month I actually came home from that deployment, but it was toward the end of summer, beginning of fall, and I remember I had a lump on my testicle, and didn't think anything of it. Didn't hurt. No big deal. You know, it wasn't one of those things. I was never taught as a young kid, hey, you need to, you know, test yourself as a young man to
check your nuts.
Yeah, check your nuts, because testicular cancer is this horrible thing. I knew nothing about it at all. So I end up finding that and going to the hospital. And a physician's assistant, actually, you know, you go check into the hospital, they put you in a room, like, all right, the doctor will be right in. And so this physician's assistant comes in, and she asks me a couple questions, and then she sits down on a stool in front of me, and I'm standing up, and she's like, all right, drop your pants. So I drop my pants, and she checks out the lump, and sure enough, she's like, okay, I need to go make a phone call about this. We need to get in touch with the urologist. Unfortunately, the Naval Hospital at Camp Lejeune then wasn't a very big hospital, didn't have a huge staff, and they had one urologist at the time, unlike other hospitals that have urology clinics, you know, or entire floors that are dedicated to urology or different type clinics. So she comes back in, and she's like, well, we can't get a hold of the urologist here in Camp Lejeune area in Jacksonville, but she goes, can you drive to Portsmouth Naval Hospital tomorrow? And I'm like, excuse me? But what for? She's like, well, you need to get this checked out. This is very important. So then I start thinking. Years start turning, and I'm like, all right, something may be going on here, but whatever. I still didn't think anything of it. It was no pain, nothing. You know, it didn't stop me from doing anything, whatever. So the next day, I'm like, all right, whatever. We'll go to the hospital. So my wife at the time and I drive up to the Portsmouth Naval Hospital the next day, and we go in, and up here in Portsmouth, actually, I'm looking at the actual hospital right across the water here. And up here, the Naval Hospital is a large hospital, and they had an entire floor dedicated to urology at the hospital here. So I get up there, and I think it was on the 7th floor. I don't remember back then, but I remember it was up high in the hospital, because sitting in the waiting room, I could look out the window and see across the bay there. And so we get the appointment and go in, and I sit down in front of a desk of a Navy captain, and he's a doctor there in the urology clinic, and he's asking me a few questions. He does a physical examination, and then he calls in a nurse who comes in with an ultrasound machine, like when you do an ultrasound on your wife when she's pregnant to check on the baby. And so they do an ultrasound on the testicle there and on the lump, and you can see it plain as day on the screen that there is a mass there, a small mass and lump. And no sooner do they see that, and the doctor looks over at the nurse and says, all right, can you go downstairs and prep the OR, please? I need to have a discussion with Corporal Taylor here. So now I'm really getting worried. I hear him talk about prepping for surgery, so I still wasn't sure if that was...
This is literally hours. This
is within an hour of me checking in for that appointment. You know, he's like, we need to prep the OR. So she goes out, closes the door, doctor closes the door, and he turns around and looks at me, and he's like, hey, this is something really serious, all right? He's like, I'm not trying to scare you, but testicular cancer, the way he kind of explained it to me, there are two types. There's a fast mover and a slow mover, but we won't know what kind it is or if it's just even benign until we remove the testicle and send it to a lab and test it and do the test and confirm what it is that we got. So either way out of this, you're losing the nut.
Did they give you a chance to say goodbye?
No, no. So needless to say, I'm there, and I'm like, holy cow, you know, I'm thinking about everything. I'm like, I could have cancer. Still don't know. It's still not completely confirmed yet or not. So I go an hour later. I'm on the gurney. I remember them. I remember being outside of the OR. them explaining something to my wife, and then they put her up in the Fisher house or one of those houses for family there.
Yeah.
And then I remember them wheeling me in under. I saw all these different lights above me in the operating room. And I remember the anesthesiologist putting the mask over my face and telling me to take 3 deep breaths, and I only ever remembered one. Mm-hmm. I took 1 deep breath, and the next thing I woke up in the recovery and ripping my blankets and clothes off to see what was going on. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, so I ended up going through the surgery. Surgery was successful, and then I went home and waited for the results. I think I don't remember if it was in the next couple of days or whatnot, but I remember coming back up to talk to the doctor about what we do next. Mm-hmm. And so they did send it off to the lab, and they did confirm that it was the fast-moving cancer. And I can't remember the name of it, but...
Well, I mean, you're a fast-moving guy. I mean, it only seems
absolutely
fitting. If you're going to do something, you're going to do it big, you're going to do it fast, you're going to do... Yeah,
I say it all the time. Go big or go home.
Yeah, Doc, save the test money. I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yep, it's a fast mover. It's going to kill me. So it was the worst case scenario for the kind of cancer that you could have, testicular cancer, and so we needed to figure out what we do next. So now that they've got that confirmed, we know that we still have a potential problem. So even by removing the testicle, and how they do that, they don't just remove just the testicle. They actually make a 3 to 4 inch incision in your groin area, just under your abdomen, and they cut the cord and they remove the testicle that way. So they get a lot of the cord that's connected to it as well. And the reason for that is testicular cancer, the way it spreads through the body is it starts in the testicle, it moves up that cord, it gets to your lymph nodes, and now it can spread anywhere in your body.
Yeah, you told me, like, that fast mover, if it's not addressed quickly, I mean, it just...
Yes. So there was another Marine at the time that I had my operation who, I don't know his story, don't know his name, but the doctor was telling me that he apparently did not come quickly to get that investigated and checked out. And they estimated by the time he did come to the medical facility, it had probably been about 7 to 8 months since it had started growing, and he had tumors throughout his torso and things like that. And I don't believe he made it through. Yeah. He survived through that. Once it got there and he had so many tumors, there wasn't much that they could do.
This is still 1994.
This is 94.
Yep.
So go back, and the next thing to do is once you have testicular cancer and you get the testicle removed, is they want to do what's called a lymph node dissection, and that scared the crap out of me when they explained to me what that was. I mean, they pretty much gut you stem to stern, remove your stomach, set it on your chest, and they cut your lymph nodes out and send those off to the lab to ensure that the cancer did or did not. It's to confirm or deny whether the cancer has spread to your lymph nodes, because once it gets to your lymph nodes, it changes their courses of action on what they can do with you. So I adamantly did not want to have that done. For some reason, I don't know why, maybe just that it was probably going to be the biggest surgery. I just gone through my first surgery in my life, and now they wanted me to have another one. And I looked into things like recovery times and all of that, and it was just, a lymph node dissection to me was scary, even though they're telling me that it's a common practice. Mm-hmm. So finally, I gave in between the doctors and my wife at the time and everybody, wanting me to have it done. I finally gave in to having it done. And I come back up to the hospital, get it scheduled, and I'm up here the night before being prepped for surgery. Surgery was going to be the following day, doing all my prep stuff. And in my blood work, they took some samples of blood, went to check my blood work one last time. And it was kind of in the evening, early evening that day. And the doctor looks at the paperwork, and he comes in, he's like, all right, we've got a problem. I'm like, great, what's the bigger problem than the fact that I've got cancer? Like, what's going on? So he said that it looks like my T-cell count had shot through the roof, his words. That it was very high, which made them think that the cancer had already spread, possibly gotten my lymph nodes and was already spreading through my body. So they canceled the surgery, immediately canceled the operation for the following day, and they had another doctor come up who was a chemo and radiation specialist come talk to me in the room and address the next course of action that we were going to have to take with the cancer. So that doctor comes up, and we're having a conversation, and he asked me had I changed anything in my lifestyle, had any lifestyle changes, in the past 3 weeks to a month or whatever, and I didn't. I hadn't changed the way I ate or, food, wasn't on any diets yet. This was all still new to me. I was trying to figure out what do I do next, and so he asked. He said, "What about working out, physical activity? Have you done anything physical?" I said, "Well, yeah, my incision in my lower abdomen is healed, so I've started working out again. I mean, that's part of your job as a Marine. You
I was going to say, I'm a Marine, damn it. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm back in the gym lifting." And he kind of gets this funny look on his face, and he's like, "All right, I'm going to take some more blood and check something else." So they take a couple more vials of blood. He goes down to the lab, runs his test, and he comes back in smiling, like almost laughing. And he's like, "Well, I got good news for you. A couple good things." He's like, "You're not dying." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, he says, the T cell count, or what was mistaken as your T cell count being high, is an enzyme or something of that nature that your muscle produces when you start doing physical activity again after you have it for a while. And I don't know if it was a lesser trained lab technician or what, but somebody had mistaken those enzymes for T cells and thought my T cell count was through the roof. And so I was glad to hear that it wasn't. I was glad to hear that lymph node dissection still got canceled and was off the table. So they told me then at that point, I slept that night, came back in the next day for a consultation with my regular doctor, and he's like, "All right, here's our new plan. This is what we're going to do. We know you don't want to have the lymph node dissection. You seem to be clear. No, your T cell count is absolutely normal. But here's what we'll do. We will agree to you coming up here to the hospital once a month for the next 3 years, and getting blood work done, chest X-rays, and a CAT scan to ensure that your T cell count stays normal and we don't find anything else that's growing or getting larger inside you. The cancer hasn't spread." So that was my that was an awesome thing. So I opted for that. So once a month I came back up here to the hospital, chest X-rays, CAT scan, and blood work every month, and it was a little eerie sometimes, like in reference to embracing the suck. That it's a long drive from Camp Lejeune up here.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's like 4 hours back then. There weren't all the bypasses or any of that, so you got a lot of time to think when you're coming up to these appointments. And every time you get done, you drive back home, and then you're just waiting for that phone call. Yeah. With them to tell you that it came back, because all the doctors.
What if this appointment is different,
exactly,
or what if
exactly, because they tell you. At least in my case, they told me that there is a good chance of it coming back later on in life, and if it does, it'll probably be even more aggressive. That was the information that they would pass. So I did. I always worried about that. So for that 3 years that I did the once a month, a lot of things changed for me in my life. I did start making some changes, and I tried to eat a little healthier. I worked out even harder. Try to stay in even better shape than I was, and just remain as healthy as I could, just in case there came a time that ever came back. Because I saw my grandmother, my dad's mom, when I was a kid. She died of cancer. I remember the little bits I do remember, seeing her going through the radiation and the chemo and all that. And that's just hard. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That's a tough life to live for cancer survivors and people that are trying to beat cancer.
Yep.
And it sucks. So.
Well, there's something to be said about Cancer Sucks campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and not to segue at all, but I'm sure some listeners are thinking, well, you got one of your testicles removed. What was the likelihood of having more kids? You had your daughter at that point in time.
That's right. So I had my daughter. She was born when I was in boot camp in 1990. And after that, in 95, I had my first son. So this was after my cancer. Christian was born. So I realized at that point, wasn't sure if we could have kids, but we did. And we had a boy. So that was good to go.
Yep.
Everything.
And then you had a couple more after that, all boys.
So another marriage later and 2 more children, and I've got 2 more boys.
Yep.
So it seems that they took the girl-producing testicle out and left the boy-producing.
I don't know if there's science behind that.
I don't either.
But we'll go ahead and just say
we'll just throw that out there.
T-science. They took the girl testicle out, and it was all boys after that.
I don't know if there's some correlation there between testicles, but
still full-time Marine through all this.
Yeah, still active duty. So during the 3 years of the once a month trips, and then for 2 years after the once a month, I had to go once every 3 months. For a total of 5 years of surveillance is what they call it on you. They made me non-deployable, so I couldn't deploy anywhere. I couldn't be in a unit that deployed. So I was actually working at Schools Battalion over on Camp Johnson, and I was a sergeant over there and an administrator. And I worked there, and it ended up other guys came through the unit that I had deployed with to Somalia, things like that. One of the first sergeants I worked for at one time we were in Somalia at the same time together. And so it was, obviously for a Marine, it's not the ideal thing. You don't want to be non-deployable. My whole thing about being a Marine was I wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
So it was time to start thinking about, okay, it looks like we're almost out of the weeds with this. What are we going to do next? I wanted to do something and get back into the service and doing things and deploying. So I started looking into new jobs because I knew the current job that I was doing wasn't cutting it for me. So there were a lot of things I looked into. I looked into taking the NDOC again and trying to become a recon Marine, and I looked at counter intel, and I looked at EOD. And at that time, I ended up taking the NDOC or the screening for counterintelligence, which was something I thought would be a pretty cool job. So I took that one and passed, and then I went over to EOD and I took their screening, and I passed that. And then I thought about the things and what was going on, and I thought, man, the whole bomb thing, that's something that I know nothing about, and I like to learn about things that I know nothing about.
That's what year is that?
This is so when I was screening and looking into it was 90. I was cleared in 97 and starting to look for orders. So in 98 I did my screening for
pre 9/11.
Yeah, pre 9/11. So I screened for EOD. Actually ended up doing it with a good buddy of mine, Mark Birmingham. We screened together and both made it. And then after that, it was waiting for school dates to come.
That's what we played golf with that time down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yep. So Mark and I ended up. I got my class date for beginning of 1990, and he was the next class after me. But something happened back then. There were only 2 Marines that got to sit in an EOD school class at that time. We were only putting two Marines per class through, and Marines are always put in a joint class where there's Marines, Army, and Air Force students. In the Navy, because they had a throughput so large, they had their own classes that were designated as Navy classes. Plus, they have other follow-on courses that they have to take with underwater and Area 8. So Mark and I were going one class behind the other, and then something happened with the West Coast guy that was supposed to be in my class, and he didn't make it. For whatever reason, he got cut at the last minute at the unit level and didn't get to go to school. So that bumped Mark up, and we ended up classing up together in school and going through school together. So I went through school in 1990, and 99. Sorry,
yeah, 1999. Yeah,
Martinis and Meatballs are really starting to kick in.
I just took a refill. This stuff is good.
Absolutely. So yes, 99.
Which we're eating meatballs with coffee stirrers. We don't have any forks. We've got a phenomenal plate of meatballs, and we've got coffee stirrers. It looks like popsicle sticks.
No silverware in this joint.
We don't need. Yeah, nice sweet, no silverware. That's our fault. So let's take a step back, and so 99 we're in EOD, but you said about non-deployable and how you wanted to be deployed, and I want to put this into perspective because you've shared with me, and I've known this for some time. So you ever been to Haiti?
Many times.
Okay. So you've been to Haiti, deployed to Haiti. You've been deployed to Somalia. You were deployed to Somalia 3 times before you were even 25 years old. You've been to Iraq once or twice, a couple times that we know about. How about Beirut? Tell the Beirut. Share. You've been to Beirut? Because I'm going to get into the Beirut story because that ties right into the Martinis and Meatballs.
Absolutely. So yes, I have been to Beirut. So late in my career as an EOD tech, I had spent about 9 years at this point at the second EOD company. It's one of those things where if you stay deployed at the company, sometimes you can call it hiding there, but you're there, you're deploying, and that's why you want to stay there. So I was due for orders. It was time for me to move to another place. I got a call from our one of our Ockfield sponsors up at Headquarters Marine Corps, who said they were standing up a new unit in Virginia Beach, and he thought I was the guy to take the EOD position that was there. At the time, there was one slot for an EOD tech there, and it was a gunny billet. So I didn't know anything about it. I asked him, I was like, hey, so what's this unit about? And he's like, hey, you'll have to call up there. So it ended up being the Marine Corps Training and Advisory Group. So it's like a foreign military advisor is what you are. And they stood this unit up. And I got to that unit. I held 3 billets there, the ops chief, the EOD chief, and the chief instructor for the training cell there. And a mission came up for Beirut, Lebanon. And it was interesting because Marines haven't been in Beirut since the bombing in the 80s. And they never protected the embassy after that. After that bombing, the Marines left. And the embassy has been protected by Lebanese security people there ever since. So it was interesting to me because of the history. You know, I had read a lot about Beirut history and the bombing and all of that, and it was the first opportunity that Marines were going to get to go back into Beirut, and it was actually on the 25th anniversary of the bombing of the barracks there. So, which, mind you, when you get there, the barracks that were bombed are still there. So the barracks were in another location than the embassy, but on the embassy compound itself, there are buildings and houses that were there that were bombed back then, and they still are not rebuilt to this day. Wow. And it is still a restricted duty station for State Department folks, where they don't bring their family to that location. You kind of go there solo, so it's an unaccompanied duty. But so yes, I did go to Beirut and start some projects there, and it was very, very interesting. And it was myself and one other person, my boss. He was Major Wolfenbarger at the time, who's now a lieutenant colonel, and probably going to be a colonel here pretty soon, and a MARSOC officer. So yeah, he and I went there together, and it was a very interesting time.
Yeah, my Beirut story is where the Martinis and Meatballs kicked in, and like I was telling you, Amy and I were talking about this because I was getting ready for today, and I said, I come up with some ridiculous ideas in my head, and
absolutely.
And I said, where the hell did I come up with having Martinis and Meatballs at 8:00 in the morning with tea? And Amy said, well, tea came up. And I said, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, we had a party. And I said, well, of course we did. That's probably why I don't remember why we did Martinis and Meatballs. And she said, well, I made all these meatballs, and we had them left over from the party. We probably had 50 people at the house. And it was just this big, huge party, and everybody had a great time. And you guys woke up early, and all that was left to eat was meatballs, and there was vodka left. So you guys had Martinis and Meatballs. And you walked out from where the guest bedroom, and the house is a complete mess. And I looked at you, and I said, Jesus, it looks like Beirut in here. And you go, no, Beirut, no, I've been to Beirut. Not even close. And that's what I was saying, man, I got to remember who my friends are, because if I make some light joke about something, they've probably been at that place, and they know how much worse.
No, you needed a lot more bullet holes in your walls to even come close to what Beirut looks like.
Yeah, we got to do some work on the bullet holes on the walls. I don't think we have any of those yet. We've got some other things in the walls from kids running around and gooey slapping things, but nothing like that. But so you did Beirut, you did Iraq. You were.
I was in Iraq, and I volunteered to be the first guy to go from our platoon to go set up the area for the platoon to come. So me and one of our senior enlisted flew over ahead of everyone else advance party in 2003 to prep for the invasion.
Yeah. And
then we got the rest of the platoon over there in our location, and then we had 2 Navy units that joined us from 2 different locations, one East Coast, one West Coast. And they came over and joined us. We broke everybody down into teams, and then we just sat on the border pretty much and waited for the go-ahead to go through. They started a little bit of the air war, softened up some of the targets with the missiles from the ships and the aircraft, and then when they gave us the go-ahead, we blew through the breaches and rolled into Iraq. Yeah.
And you've been to a whole bunch of. I asked you. It's countless, and one of the stories that I don't share often, but I'll share here, is the night you called me from D.C. you and I can't remember the Marine you were with. Young guy.
Joseph France.
Yeah. You called me about midnight.
Yeah.
And you said, "Hey, Peach, we got a good, strong possibility we're going to be stuck in Boston for the night." And I said, "I'm on my way." Yep. And drove in. I think I picked you up around, God, it was like probably 2 o'clock in the morning or something.
Yeah,
you guys had a free hotel room if you wanted it.
Yep.
And you came and stayed with me,
yep.
and we and I think we had martinis and
we
beers.
Did. Yep.
Yeah,
we partied.
Yeah, and then we brought you back.
Back,
and you were going to an undisclosed location in Africa. I think is where you were.
Absolutely. We were on our way to Africa for an engagement there, and flights got delayed out of DC and back and forth, and we ended up in Boston. And I was like, I got just the guy to call.
We got a suite like I got here in Norfolk that we can stay at the Hyatt and not go anywhere, but we're going to get in the car, we're going to go do some drinking, we're going to go hang out.
Absolutely.
And we're going to wake some folks up and have a good time. And I appreciate you for doing stuff like that.
I appreciate you for picking us up. I still keep in touch with Joseph France today. He's no longer a Marine. But he's out doing great things out west. But he asked me every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yeah, how's Josh Peach?"
Give him my number. Tell him to give me a call.
Yeah, I'm like, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, no, if he's ever in town, tell him to give me a call. If I'm home, I'll pick him up.
Absolutely.
So 22 years in the Marines, lucky to graduate high school, probably had some challenges. You get told you got to get rid of one of your little guys downstairs within an hour. He's gone. Worries, just I can't even imagine. There's countless different pieces of this last 20 minutes or so that I can't even put myself in your shoes to imagine what I would do. Because people always say, "Well, I would do this," or "You should consider this." People always give advice to things that they have no idea about. I have no idea how I would do things. One of the things that I'm inspired by is, I don't know how I would do things in that situation, but one of the things is I'd want to be like T in that situation. How do you do it?
I don't know. It's I guess it's inherent. I have I guess it's all about attitude sometimes, and how you look at things. Sometimes I look at things negative a lot. I'm like anybody else. I'm a regular guy. I put my pants on the same way as anybody else does. But sometimes you gotta take things into perspective, And somebody told me a long time ago when I was a young Marine, not to sweat the small shit, and it's all small shit. And when you think about that and take that into perspective, it's such a simple saying. But when you think about it and you put that in perspective to the things that you have to deal with in life, there's some things that you just can't control. And you can either drive yourself crazy trying to control this thing that you're never, ever going to control, or you can just try to embrace it, and say, okay, well, what is the best outcome that I can get out of this, And don't get me wrong, I'm sitting here telling you this, it is much easier said than it is to do. I promise you that. But sometimes you just got to take that step back and say, all right, what do I got to do to deal with this, So I would say, I dealt with a lot of things in my life, childhood all the way up. But the cancer, that one hit me hard. So I definitely was pretty good in controlling my attitude and not being the woe is me. Like I didn't want to, just feel sorry for myself. Oh, I have cancer, whatever. It's like, okay, I have something that could potentially shorten my lifespan. I got two ways to go with this. I can give up and let it take over everything, or I can have the best life that I can have up until the point that I can no longer have it. So that was kind of the way that I looked at that, and it's kind of the way I try to look at a lot of things in life, Sometimes the smoke and mirrors will get you though, and you don't always have the best attitude, because we are all human. But when you sit down and take a breath and step back and think about things, just try to put them in perspective and embrace the suck, like the T-shirt. You saw me wearing.
Your timing on that couldn't have been any better. I mean, that's just like, the fact that you and Dave hadn't met in a small community face to face, and I'm like, let's call T. And of course, you always answer. Yep. I mean, there hasn't been a time in the last 12 years that I think that you either haven't answered or you haven't called back within minutes. And you've been in foreign lands a lot of times. And for you to answer the FaceTime and look and you get the shirts, embrace the suck, I'm like, if you ain't wearing a Be Awesome shirt, you might as well be wearing that as a close second.
Absolutely.
Must be laundry day.
Yeah, it was. It was laundry day. My Be Awesome shirt was in the laundry, so I was wearing my Embrace the Suck.
Yeah, one of the things that I look at people when you say don't sweat, and I got given a book which it doesn't have the word shit probably, so it could make bestseller. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
We all screw up with not reminding ourselves of that, myself included, many times, probably 3 or 4 times before today will be over. I'll have some small stuff that I'll sweat about before I kick back and stop and readjust. Do you think you had that mindset do you think the cancer triggered that for you to be a little bit?
I don't know if it necessarily triggered it. I think it was, to be honest, I think it was some decent mentorship that I had as well. It could be part of the cancer and a little bit about myself and how I look at things inherently. But I had some good mentorship or leadership throughout my a few points in my childhood, and then definitely as a Marine. There's all kinds of Marines out there. There's some stellar Marines and there's not so stellar Marines. Everybody's got the full spectrum. But I've been very fortunate to have some people that have imparted some knowledge on me and some ways to look at things that have actually helped me. And when I think back on that, it helps me out in situations like that. So, as a lot of Marines do, I ran into some trouble early on in my career and didn't come back to base on time. It's actually like a week later. So I was actually
who's counting?
UA or AWOL as they call it. Yeah. Not intentionally, but I missed a flight, and then you go into crisis mode, and I didn't make a phone call like I should have, but I flew back and then stood up and reported in and took responsibility for my actions. And I remember I was a young PFC at the time, and I remember my platoon sergeant pulling me to the side and telling me, he's like, "Hey, look, you messed up. You made a mistake. If this isn't how you really are, chalk it up, take responsibility for it, and then put it behind you. Yeah. Don't dwell on it. Don't think about it. And it's that's something that he told me years ago in the beginning of my military career that stuck with me forever. And even as a father, I've been that way with my kids. When my kids are in trouble, they get their punishment, and then I forget about it. Mm-hmm. I don't dwell on that stuff any longer. It's done. That's done. They did something wrong. They got their punishment. It's over with. And I don't bring it up again, and I try to incorporate things like that in my life. We all make mistakes, but if you accept responsibility for the mistake and press on, you're good.
You want to know something? Probably, you said it upstairs. I'm not going to give the example on that, on all the examples, but in multiple times over the years, Clifford said it last week was claim it, but I'm going to say you own it. You have to be one of the most stand-up guys with owning it and with not being worried about the 500-pound elephant and not being afraid to say how it is. Yeah. And, it's amazing to me how people they'll hide behind, as we gave the example, hide behind paper or whatever. You stand up, you stand tall, you hold your shoulders up high no matter what the situation is, and you own it. And I think more people need to do that, of, hey, this is what happened. Sucks. It's terrible. I'll address it. I'll make it right. I'll do whatever I can. I'm sorry. Here's my explanation. You don't make excuses by it. You don't give justifications for it. You own it, and you move next to it, and you're carrying it on to that next legacy. I think that the mentorship, which is something that's often, I think, missed, is when you're mentored and you appreciate it, it's vital and just imperative that you pay it forward. And you've done that amazingly with people where you're like, you're in the EOD community, you're like straight legit T, there's posters with your picture on it, right? Like people walk in and they're like, that's the dude right there, right? Yeah. You're going to be humble about it, but you have done a phenomenal job I'm going to share the story at this point because I think it's important as how this thing's all going. You and I met under very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah, we became very close very quick. Fists will do that. Fist flying and beers will, and Jameson will do that.
Absolutely.
But you were 12 years ago this past Saturday, Amy chose you and requested you to bring home her husband, my friend, and your friend, Bill, who was killed in action in Iraq. And, you were a great mentor to Bill, and you were a great mentor to probably Shane Danielson and to some of the others that I got to meet at Lejeune.
Yeah, all great dudes.
And you never asked for anything out of it. You just gave what was probably given to you, which was some elder wisdom, some experience of don't show up a week late and miss your flight and not make phone calls.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, I got your back when that happens, as long as you're willing to own it.
Yep.
And that's pretty amazing. That's a rarity. Most people forget that third one, because we're all going to screw up.
Yep.
And we have such high expectations, and we're all human on this thing. So, I think you just, as a human, you've just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I appreciate you for it. I know that when I was up on the mountain, ready to die, right?
I was there with you in spirit.
Yeah, man. You were like, I wouldn't do to be there. I'm like, dude, I think I'm gonna die right now. And you're like, it's gonna be great. You couldn't be any better.
Yep.
But you were there,
and
and
I was thankful that you called me.
I was thankful, as it was. I called Amy, and she said, "Is everything all right?" And I literally, I know it wasn't that bad. My mind in my head, it was that bad. I had no idea how I was going to get down, and I probably contemplated rolling down a rocky cliff to expedite the process. And you were just there. You're just like, just level, just calm, just, hey, let's figure out how to do this together sometime. Maybe it'll go a little bit smoother.
That's it.
But it's just amazing to me how simple you make it seem.
It seems simple, and we can all talk about it that it's simple. It really isn't. But I understand, how people can think it's simple.
But you probably don't look at people and say, oh, well, he's got it because he's got this, and this, or he's got this. You don't have like this envy or this feeling of, oh, well, I can't get there because of something that's holding you back, because of something someone else has,
right,
or because someone else. You're saying, I'm going to do the best that I can to get to where I can get to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to keep raising my bar. And you do that every single day.
That's all we can do is get to where we can. And you can only get so far by yourself, and then you've got to embrace other people, and to help you get sometimes to those final steps. And that's not easy for everybody. It isn't always easy for me. Like I said, it sounds, when we talk about it, it sounds easy, but it's not always easy.
Well, it's trust.
Yep.
Right. It's not just trusting other people. It's trusting yourself that you're trusting
Absolutely.
Other people that are the right people. Yep. Because so often people trust. I know I've done it professionally. I know I've trusted a number of people that I probably should do a second take and be like, what the hell was I thinking? And personally, I'm sure I've had that challenge as well. But that wasn't a lack. That wasn't something on them. That was something on me.
Right.
That was bad judgment on myself. That was bad, thinking through like, I should trust this person. I shouldn't trust this person. What would happen? It's kind of like that thing, like, a good friend a good friend will bail you out of jail. A good friend will bail you out of jail. A great friend will be sitting next to you, it's going, man, wasn't that some crazy shit we got into last night?
Exactly. Yep. Oh, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
100%.
That's one of those things. It's like, knowing who's there through that stuff and who's going to be there when the dust settles. Because someone can be there through that stuff and then just see you later,
That's one thing, guys, in the EOD field, in the Marine Corps. That's one thing that we maybe take for granted, but it's a good thing that we have is that brotherhood.
Yeah.
And not just in the EOD field, Marines inherently, in every Marine Corps unit, that unit has a brotherhood of guys that have all been through the same, they've all embraced the same suck together, and they made it through. And there's a billion phenomenal stories out there about that,
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I hear the stories. Bill and I weren't great friends for a long time, but we were great friends. And one of the things that he seemed to do is compartmentalize kind of his relationship. So he had his Marines, and then he had his family, and then he had some others like myself. I mean, I talked to him almost every day for the last year, it seemed like. And through you guys your son was born a month before, a month after
Danny.
Yeah. And that, watching it from the outside, listening to him, and then experiencing it through stuff with you and Dave and Dan Frawley and others. It's just, you see that, and you don't see that everywhere.
Unfortunately,
it would be incredible for you guys to put together like a program for people that you just gave them the secret sauce, which is really simple, which is look out for each other, care about each other, genuinely want to make a difference.
No, absolutely,
absolutely, and do the right thing. I mean, that there's no secret. Like, I sit here and go, what the hell's the difference between these guys and these guys? And it's, these people care.
Yeah.
These people are looking out for their greater good for everyone, not just for themselves.
Yep.
They're looking out for what's the benefit as a whole opposed to themselves. And you just don't see that a lot. And I mean, that's kind of a lot of why I started this whole thing, was like, it should be awesome to each other. And I feel, just for me, I get through many of my days with people like you, and it's not that, like, it's one of those things, like, it's not like I can't get through my day without you, but it's a huge, there's something to be said about knowing people have your back.
Absolutely.
And for your best interests, and to have that you have that for the long run.
Yep.
And I try to tell people, pick your friends, and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, maybe with Dave, and I think I might have talked about it with Clifford last week, which was, our CEO talks about, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Choose wisely. And, that's one sticking point with me that carries on, that I look around constantly. I'm doing, I made a joke last week. I said, it's never too late to make a late round draft pick or something, to swap somebody out or whatever.
Right.
I might not need more friends, but I might need to make a swap out at some point, because when I look around, someone's not behaving right or looking right or doing right, or they're right. And, it's always really easy when stuff's going good.
Yeah. For
everybody to look good.
Yep.
And and that's the hardest part, is you don't know what it looks like till it gets ugly.
Yeah.
You don't know what that person's going to be like or act like, but you need to act quick when they're not doing right by you. I'm just amazed at I thought I knew most of what you talked about today, but all of a sudden, like, you start talking about this stuff and you're like, yeah, when I was in Beirut, or when I was in Somalia, or when I was here, and I'm sitting here going, I went to Rhode Island over the weekend. That was pretty good. It was 17 minutes.
Yeah.
Were you ever like, so you said you want to travel the world, but like you're not traveling the world to do TripAdvisor reviews. You're traveling like you're traveling the world in conflicted areas.
True.
Did you ever just like, what did that feel like? Like, were you just on a pure adrenaline rush for that whole time you're gone? Like, what is that? Are you like? Do you feel fear? Do you like what?
So you feel a bit of okay. So I can only speak for me. I felt a bit of everything, depending on where you go. You know, any guy that's been to a conflict zone that says he never felt fear. Yeah, he's full of himself, or herself, whatever. But yes, you go. I mean, depending on where you go and what you're involved in, you could feel a lot of emotions. But I really did want to see the world. You know, like I didn't travel a whole lot as a kid. I grew up in Michigan my whole childhood. I did travel. We had some family lived in Oklahoma, so I would occasionally go to Oklahoma to see family and things like that. You know, and I'd been to some states around and even Canada. But that's like I wanted to see there's a whole world out here outside the United States that most of the people in the United States have no clue about. You know, and there's it's not all about what's right here in the U.S. Yeah, we're the greatest nation in the world, no doubt. But there's a whole nother world out there of people that are living their daily life that never know anything even close to what we have here. So I wanted to see that stuff and experience it for myself. So yeah, I felt constant adrenaline going to new places. You feel anxiety. You go through a whole slew of emotions, especially when you're going somewhere for combat. But I enjoy going everywhere I've gone. You know, seeing the world and seeing all these different places. I've gotten to go to Israel and go to the old city of Jerusalem and walk around there a few times and just see all these sights that if you don't travel to see them, you only see them on TV, and one is nothing like the other. Right. You know, being somewhere in person is so much better. I've done missions in Cameroon, Africa, training the Cameroon Marines. And it's just amazing to be in the jungle with those guys and training them to be better at the job that they're doing, to go be successful at their missions. And just to meet these people. Liberia was one of my countries, and I've spent countless missions to Liberia. You ask my wife, Millie, she'll tell you. She probably hates the fact that I was gone a lot of the time, you know, when I was in the military. But she always enjoyed hearing the stories and the things, you know, that when I came back and telling them what I did and what I got to do and the things that I've seen and the people that I've met that I still keep in touch with to this day.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, the world is an amazing place. There's a lot of different stuff out there. Too many people are scared of being different or seeing different. You know? And I wanted to see the world, and I think I pretty much accomplished what I wanted to see. There's still places I'd like to go see that I haven't.
Yeah, what's on your bucket list?
Oh man, bucket list.
Yeah, I mean, what's on T's bucket list, or what's on T's left to see TripAdvisor?
Probably some more of South America, Central and South America.
Yeah,
you know, I'd like to do a little more time down there. I had phenomenal Marines that worked for me at McTag when I was a foreign military advisor. That when I got to bring more EOD guys on, I ended up creating 3 more billets at that unit, bringing guys on. And I had phenomenal dudes that came on that got to cover a lot of those areas that I didn't get to see. And hearing them come back, you know, like Tim Lynch, hearing him come back from South America and tell the awesome stories of the places he went down there. You know, Central and South America is probably some more that I'd like to see. But I mean, I've been all over Europe, a lot of the Arab nations, and maybe some more of Asia, you know. But there's a whole world out there. I'm sure there's places I'd like to see that I don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the, I think I'd like to go there idea. My mother went to, she does these senior tours. She's a Spanish teacher, so she just got back from Panama. She's been in the hospital all week with pneumonia. But she was in these, and she went to these indigenous villages, and she went to the Galapagos Islands last year, which are supposed to be just absolutely gorgeous and amazing. That I put on my bucket list. I'm one of those people. You know, sadly, between my travel in the States. And I'd have to say some of my concern of what I see on the news and what I see out there and some of the stuff that I experience hearing. I kind of get in my little own bubble when I have the opportunity. I stay home.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try not to watch a lot of the news. That would discourage me from going to some of those places.
Oh, man, we cut cable off a couple years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Does it work?
No, because of the news and all that. Yeah,
what do you watch?
I don't. Well, Netflix or.
Oh, you got Netflix. I got Netflix.
Netflix or Amazon Prime, man. Watch a movie when you want. There's so many other things to do that if you get caught up in the news, once they hook you with that fish hook, they got you. And it can destroy you. It can destroy your attitude and your outlook.
Dude, you are like, God. Amy is like, she's so anti-news with stuff,
Good
which is
good for her.
Yeah, and for me, like, I don't know. Well, in my day job, a lot of stuff happens that's related to my clients and potential clients, and most of the time it's not good, unfortunately. I wish it was more good. So I try to keep up on that stuff, but you're absolutely right. You just get caught up, and all of a sudden you're reading and watching and doing all this stuff. And well, Clifford last week, the Hampton Inn, I don't know if you heard that one. This guy was phenomenal. He has been the bellman. He calls himself the director of first impressions for the Hampton Inn for the last 15 years. He was in the New York Times. So we're getting ready to do the podcast. And like 30 seconds beforehand, I'm setting everything up, doing the sound check on the microphone. He goes, I was in the New York Times. And I'm like, wait a second. Why don't we? I mean, I appreciate how great your coffee is. I appreciate all. But could you have maybe opened up with that story so I could have had some more meat and potatoes to understand a little bit about you and how, like, you're the guy as far as I'm concerned. But maybe I should read the article because I feel stupid. Yeah. I'm talking about Clifford. Everybody's like, well, he's on the New York Times. He's on the front cover in 3 pages. And I'm like, holy. But I literally got done with him and the podcast. And I'm walking out. I had a cup of his coffee. It was delicious. I'm like, well, I got to read this article. And I start reading the article. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the New York Times. So then I start reading the other articles. And they ain't good like Clifford's article, right? With one good article, you see 100 bad ones, And, people ask me about, paddling the pumpkin. And I had a couple of reasons why I attempted that pumpkin paddle
that was awesome.
Nonsense. Yeah, well, and it was like, you do it once, your friend makes it, and you don't, and then he says, let's do it again, and he double and a quarters the distance, and you go, yeah, sure, what the hell, why not? Yeah. And one of the newspapers, and I'm glad that he made it both times and I got to make it once, but at the end of the day, when I got when a reporter asked me about, why did I do it? I said, well, it was to support my friend Todd, and I just thought it'd be cool. And I wanted to be a part of a story that was positive because the news is so negative. And you're absolutely right. And it affects my attitude, hands down. My CEO, I remember in the worst recession in history, I went through and I said, hey, stocks are down, retirements are off, but the house is gone down in value by 40%. Oil is this, all these things. And he said, well, are you going to move? I said, no, I love my house. You're going to get out of it? You're going to retire early? No, I've got 30 more years. I went through this whole thing. And he said, stop watching the news.
Yep.
Because as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and as sure as we all wake up and get an opportunity in the day, there's going to be people out there that are making the most of it.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be making the most of it with the exact same things that are happening around them as a person that's consumed with what's on the news and all this garbage and nonsense. They just choose to drown out the noise. And I think that's what you do. I think that you have an innate ability or a trained ability over time to drown out the noise. You embrace the suck, but you also drown out the noise. The stuff around you is just...
You have to at certain points. Because if you don't, you get caught up in it, and that's very easy.
Yeah.
If you don't concentrate on drowning out the noise, you can get caught in it. I'm lucky and very fortunate that I have a support network in my wife, Millie, that is the most positive person in the world.
As long as you're within 300 miles of my Kia, you're good.
Yeah.
Hi, Millie, I miss you.
See, I mean, she really is, and she's been a huge help in that for me. Since we've been together and married and raised our family. But and it's like the whole Be Awesome thing. This is the greatest thing I think since sliced bread, dude. You've had so many awesome guests, on this podcast, and it is cool to see everyday people come on and just talk about how they embrace the suck or make it through each day, and the things that because none of us have the answers to everything, right? Yeah. And we all can learn from someone else.
Yeah, it's one of those things is that there's always it's always the person that's done something extraordinary that says we're all ordinary, right? It's like, hey, I'm just an ordinary person. You're all just ordinary doing extraordinary and all that stuff. And the reality is that it's really hard to put into perspective. I talked to you about Marcus Luttrell's podcast with the Army OD tech that he had on last week. That she lost both her arms. Yeah. If I listened to her, I would be inspired. I'd be amazed. But again, I couldn't imagine and put myself into that perspective. What I want to put into perspective with all of this is any single person listening to this podcast today that has the ability to listen, to learn, and to execute something different can make their day a little bit better.
Yep.
There's no excuse. Like there's no, I'm not in this situation. Like you said earlier, we put our pants on one leg at a time.
Same way.
So, people can do better, be better, get better. They just have to want it.
Yep.
And they have to tell themselves. And it could be something as simple as not listening to the news. And I think that's great advice. And I have to take it because you're sitting here saying it, and I'm sitting here saying, man, I have been struggling lately because the news has just been terrible. I mean, the synagogue shooting yesterday, the weather events that have just killed people in just amazing numbers with tornadoes and floods and everything else. The politic fighting, everything. I get caught up in it. I get consumed in it.
It's very easy to get consumed. Oh
my God! You forget about it. Yeah. Forget about it. It's crazy. I'm so appreciative for you to make this time. This is great. I mean, you and I have had countless hours and days and everything else of just us. But whether this is in your comfort zone or out of your comfort zone, I'd probably say a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Oh yeah, it's out of my comfort zone. You popped my podcast cherry today, Josh.
Yeah, your first.
I've never done a podcast before.
This is
podcast,
it. So. And you knocked it out of the park.
All you listeners can feel free to judge me all you want.
Yeah, you knocked it straight out of the park. I'm going to give you what's left of the vodka, and I'm not going to give you these meatballs because they're too damn delicious. But no, I appreciate the hell out of you. I love you, brother. I
love you too.
I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for us to be where we've had this opportunity to be where we're at.
Yeah, me either.
And it means the world to me. So we'll have an episode too. I got a feeling that people are going to be going. They're going to be like, "Why don't you get Dave and T off FaceTime? Get them together. Get a couple more people that you've had on. Get in a room with vodka, beer, meatballs, and any other number of things you got going on, and knock out a group pod." But no, I appreciate you. Let's enjoy a little bit more time, just you and me. I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Anything you want to close with? I think you've covered. I mean,
I just want to say thank you for having me. If any of your other guests that have been on this are listening, I've listened to a lot of the podcasts, and there's a lot of amazing stories and lots of tidbits of things for me to pull into for my own life. So thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for everything.
You're quiet in social media, other than on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to look you up, you are on LinkedIn.
I am on LinkedIn, yep.
Jason Taylor. You can find him. I'm connected to him. If you have a hard time, I'll put the two of you together. But in the meantime, this has been an incredible day for me to be able to spend some time with a great friend, share his story. I hope you got something out of it. Embrace the suck. And it's a whole lot easier to do when you have some martinis and meatballs and great people around you. So also, thank you so much to those that are doing ratings and reviews. I know that I do this every single podcast. Many of you probably push stop, and that's okay. For those of you that don't understand that the ratings and reviews that you provide on iTunes dramatically impact and affect where I place in the standing. So if I'm doing a good job, your sharing with the world that I'm doing a good job goes a very long way. If I'm doing a bad job, let me know, or put it on the ratings and reviews. Just doing something is better than doing nothing. So I also have a couple of Sam Glenn books. I've got 72 coffee mugs coming in that are going to look for a home. If you want a shirt, just send me a message. Tell me which one of those 3 things you want. I'm not going to have any meatballs left. T just is running a train on one right now, so I got to get my popsicle stick in there while the going's good. But
these things are good.
Yeah, they really are. Those are fantastic, and they're huge. I don't know how we're doing it with these toothpick looking things, but you can find me, Josh, at Be Awesome, Josh at beausm.com, www.beawesome.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm doing a whole bunch more on Instagram, and that's beawesome_Tika, TEETKA, and that's the essential elements to kicking ass. In case anybody's wondering what it means under the SM in my shirts. Shirts are for sale. We're going to be making a donation this week, thanks to JM Pet Resort and a couple other sales. We're going to be making a donation for about $300 over to them this weekend for their big annual walkathon and 5K road race. And in the meantime, in order to be awesome, you got to do awesome. Have a great week.